other. We're gonna kind of talk about what happened here.
Social media?
Social media agent, yes.
Okay, social media?
Social media agent, yes.
Okay, how many kids you have?
I have two.
How many baby daddies?
Two.
Two? Okay. So you didn't think after the first one that you wanted to marry the next one?
No.
No? Okay. Okay. I was just asking because for real men, that's what matters. Your first one is given. Your second one, the mistake is on you.
Oh, is it? Well, there's
That's definitely
circumstances
right.
under why I got
That's
pregnant.
definitely
but
right.
That's nor here or there, and that's
Yeah,
not
but
what I'm here for.
Okay, definitely. You're a beautiful woman, though.
Thank you.
But I respect your answer.
Man, oh man. Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not speaking first. So I'm gonna throw this one to Jay. I'm gonna throw this one to Jay first, bro. Where do you feel like he violated? How was he out of pocket? If he didn't, do you feel like he even violated? What's your thoughts on what my man just came to her and said and about the kids and X, Y, and Z?
I think he violated in a couple areas with the snakeskin belt. That was a violation on the dress code. He violated his goddamn self. Second, like, okay, I get, like, hey, you have a baby daddy. Why didn't you? I feel like people trying to dig into that Kevin Samuels bag of like, well, why didn't you marry the first baby daddy or whatever? Okay, life happens, circumstances happen. We're here on a speed dating site, right? This is a show of Pop the Balloon. You're trying to dig super deep on some shit that doesn't matter right now at the moment. That's something that asked her outside of that. And the last thing is, I think he violated with I think a lot of these guys out here really feel like that the definition of high value is just based off of income. And they're not understanding what it means to be a high value man. So it's like, well, do you think I'm going to want that versus a woman with no kids? Well, you wouldn't be on this dating app getting balloons popped if you were so high value. You wouldn't be sitting here getting these. So you're not value as you think. So I think that a lot of these guys and women need to be humbled again and understand this is just a regular dating site. You're here this is popped off attraction, all of these things, and understand what it is. You're taking it too deep. That was out of pocket.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hey, I know, bro. I'm gonna go. So I'm Princess. What's your thoughts? I think I know where Lou's going, and I can't wait for it.
So personally, I agree with everything that you said, Jay. Personally, I think there was nothing wrong with him asking how many kids or how many baby daddies. Those are fair questions. To me, it was him taking it upon himself to try to ask additional questions and make her feel, uncomfortable or feel a certain way about the decisions that she has made in her life. I don't feel like that was his place. Also, it was the aggression. Like, I don't know if y'all have watched the entire episode, but I did. But he not only did it to that woman, he went down the line of like all the women who popped the balloon on him and did the same thing. And like pretty much all of them had kids. And it was his body language. I watched the way like his fist was kind of clenching up. I was like, yeah, he hit women more than likely. Like, no jokes. I pay attention to stuff like that. And
I think that's a fair assumption, bro. I'm not gonna cap.
I didn't see that.
I did. I don't like when men talk to women in a certain level of aggression that I know I can tell that type of man, I can sniff them out. You wouldn't keep that same energy if it was another dude standing in front of you. So I just didn't like how he tried to like run down the line and son all of them. That really, really pissed me off.
For sure. So Brittany said really quickly, calling at the child a mistake as well. I felt like I don't know if he called the child a mistake. I felt like he was talking about the second person. I do think that's absolutely wild. Don't get me wrong. But so this is my thing, man. Golly. And it gotta be a night where we super popping tonight, right? I got a question for you ladies. Not that woman, not that thing. Was it fair? Was his logic behind what he was trying to say about making a mistake the first time and then doing something the second time? And I get it gets touch and feely with kids because I felt like he was just saying a vetting process. Let me acknowledge that things happen. Hopefully nobody is just having kids without actually doing the vetting process, dating or whatever the case may be. Was the logic bad or was it the delivery? I'm asking a question.
I think it was more so the delivery, and it wasn't his place to have that conversation with her. He does not know that woman.
For sure. 110%. Lewis, man, what's your thoughts, bro?
You know, my wife and I were watching that one live together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to dismiss what Princess said. You know what I mean? Because that's not something that I've known or I look for. But what I found to be interesting, and I got frustrated with it, is because he assumed that multiple women had multiple baby fathers, and they did. Right? He was assumptive in his questioning, and he was right every time about them having multiple baby fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then when he got to the one where the girls start popping, all the rest of the girls start popping their balloons, it's because he was right again. And if it was an environment that I was in, I'd be frustrated because I'm like, I'm probably running into this ish all the time. And when homegirl got defensive, right, then he started probing, and he was like, listen, you know, typically, if that's not something that you want to be, you wouldn't put yourself in position for that to continuously happen. The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it appeared to me that neither of those women that he was talking to wanted to take accountability for having multiple baby fathers. So my bro, Jay, I respect 100%, 110% what you were saying. But to this point, I think as a single man, if you are not out here sowing seeds, if you're not out here sowing seeds with multiple women, it's okay for you to have a certain standard to not want to be with a woman who has given birth to multiple children by different men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially if you did it one time and your goal is to get married, why would you continuously put yourself in a situation or repetitively put yourself in a situation to where you are now a multiple childbearing mom to different dudes? To me, it's okay to have a standard of that.
Mm-hmm. I think,
Yeah,
okay, I think that was great. Let me just add a quick thing, though. I think what we're taking out of this dating scene is that context. You have a lot of people with manipulation. You have a lot of people that are showing up in relationships that are not their true self. So let's say that second baby daddy was, you know, you have people when you talk, you pillow talk, they may be saying, okay, I know this is what you want, you know, and then it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't have learned from the past. I'm just saying that he does have a preference. I agree with him. Okay, I don't want to date no woman with 3-4 baby daddy. I'm kissing that. I ain't tripping on that. But the way that it was delivered in that moment and in that environment, I don't think that was a conversation at that moment.
yeah.
But it is because you got multiple people. This is a random group of women who are all in a very similar scenario.
But
And
Louis,
that's why I'm frustrated with it. I was mad that he was assumptive. I was defensive in part of the women initially, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he kept assuming that they all had kids with multiple men, and they did.
But Louis,
so how are you guys upset with him by creating that accountability? Hold on, my bad, bro. I'm just saying, this is where I got frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
It was embarrassing for me to see that. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I was like, man, he wrong for assuming that that's the case. But he was right.
He was
but
right.
Then they all getting defended about it. But he's right. You're proving his point.
He was right, Louis. But let me ask you a question, though. To me, it would have made more sense if he was arguing with the women that still had their balloon. They already popped already. So the interest wasn't even there for him anyway. If somebody that still had their balloon and he was arguing that, then he said that and you got multiple and then he popped their balloon, to me it will make more sense. They already popped their balloon.
You're saying it in the sense of the actual show. I'm speaking on just visual. Like you got 20 women in a room and half of y'all got multiple baby fathers.
Right.
I'm like, it's embarrassing. Like this dude is the way he was assumptive in his questioning, and he was right. And I was upset that he was right that much.
Got you.
Like that to me that bothered me.
I see what you're saying.
And I understand what you're saying, Louis. However, but I don't think that those women owed him any accountability. That was my issue with it. Like, I think, like I said, he had every right to say, you know, anybody, you know, everybody, a lot of people go up there and say, anybody have kids? How many kids do you have? How many baby daddies? But in the context of the conversation, the conversation should have ended there, because who are you to stand there and continue to question me and try to make me feel some type of way? For one, my balloon is already popped on you, but you got the answers. So why are you antagonizing me at this point? And I think the reason why more women continue to pop their balloon, it was because of exactly what he was doing, and also the tone that came with that. Because if you're a woman, whether I have 5 baby daddies, who are you to sit here and question me about my decisions on this show? I gave you the answer. I was truthful, but you're not going to make me feel less than for my decisions when you came on this dating show. Like, this isn't the time or the place, and I don't owe you anything. So that's really the reason why I feel like multiple women continue to pop their balloons on him. He was definitely given like little man syndrome. It was like he gave a tantrum because those women popped the balloon on him, and then they gave him a little bit of ammo, and then he ran with it.
All right, so we got a couple of comments. Brittany said he intentionally tried to belittle the women. Have your preference, that's fine, but don't try to check me. TF. I won't say what it means. From DJ Marcusell, if you ain't planning to have that baby, it's a mistake. A spade is a spade. He ain't need to speak on it because he wasn't planning on being around anyway.
Facts.
I don't know if he dug enough to say they didn't give enough context to their second child's father to know if there's mistakes or not. This is what I will say, and I don't know how popular or unpopular this may be, but I'll say this. I don't know how, like Jay was talking earlier about how like dudes pillow talk, they be all in your ear, like woo, 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 blah, blah, blah. I am not placing blame. I'm talking about a general scenario. I feel like if you don't see something with this person and women are the only ones that could carry children, you know what I'm saying? You got to protect yourself if you feel like it's not going there. You know what I'm saying? Like whether he's spitting the game, doing what he do, ooh, love, woo, woo, protect yourself. This is no way for him blaming what they were saying as far as mistakes and stuff like that. I'm not getting into that because fortunately, like women carry the babies. He can say whatever he want to say, but you got to protect yourself in that instance because I do think that things happen. However, like you would need more context to this second baby daddy situation, third baby daddy situation. I don't think it's fair to judge a woman because she has multiple. If you get a little context around what happens, then you can make a fair judgment call, which I feel like that's
what do you judge her on?
I mean, this is the thing. If I'm interested, I'm gonna ask a little more questions, right? Like because.
But you judge people based on what though?
The way they look, anybody get me caught up in the game.
And you judge people on the decisions that they made.
That's true.
But why did so
can I just
go ahead.
Real quick. Couple things here. The first thing is that what I was not happy with is the fact that he took it upon himself to educate women, but he did not take it upon himself to do it in a way that they could receive it anyway. So if the point that he was trying to make is like, hey y'all, as Black women, let's try to make better decisions, it was never going to be received by them because of how he said it. So
they wouldn't have received that.
If he decided to do what he did, I mean, because he did it, right? You then have to say, what was his intent? Because from what I heard, he was in his feelings because of what Lewis is saying. His frustration was from the same frustration. I hear that. But then it's like, okay, was it just to express your frustration or was it to educate? Because he did not do it in a way that it was going to be received. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I wish that he would have then asked different questions because, and I'm going to say like this, out of however many women that were there that had multiple children, right? Multiple baby fathers or whatever. And I did not see the whole thing. So I'm not sure y'all, but there's so much context that plays a role. So for instance, what if for her, she had a child when she was 15 years old? She's now 30. She then did wait, right? She then did meet somebody or whatever the case may be. And I literally have a client that like the plan was, she was like, I don't even want this child, right? I don't think that it's a good idea to have another child, all the things. This person, right, cried all the things, said all the things. And do you know why she's with me? because of the decision that she made, because another person, right, made her feel guilty for not wanting to have their child. Right. And so I do think that there is other context that should have been explored if his whole purpose was, right, because he could be frustrated. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. Right. Like, for instance, I would be just as irritated if I was on the other end of it and every dude that's up there told me that they have 3 children and 3 baby moms. I would also be very extremely frustrated. I would. But I would not sit there and then chastise this one person in the way that I did, because in my mind, he's not hearing what I'm saying at all. So I think if you're
I
going to
disagree.
educate somebody, you should do it in a way that they receive it. Why
I disagree.
why did he have
I
to be
don't
the one
think you
to
could.
educate her?
I don't think you could tell black women anything like that when it comes to that. I think black women are so defensive when you give them accountability around something like that. But
Do you
us as
think he said
black
it in the right
men,
way?
no, he didn't. I agree with you on that. And
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think his intention was to educate. But what I'm saying is, the minute that you start to give them accountability, in my experiences about something like that, and people in general don't like being accountable, so I'm not going to generalize it. I'm going to generalize it for a moment, but I'm going to take it back specifically to black women. And here's the thing that I really like that Kevin Samuels used to do. He used to create that accountability, and he did it with the right intentions, and people started to receive it, right? But it just frustrates me how maybe he wasn't the right representative of it, but it alluded to a bigger issue or an issue in our community. And I hate to say it. No, I don't hate to say it. In your scenario that you gave with someone that you're talking with, it's still their choice, right? Someone made them feel a certain way and they made a decision. They made a poor decision.
Right.
So it's still that accountability is still on them. So I don't think, and I think that really alludes to a bigger issue. Having a child takes an act. And it takes a conscious act for a child to be born. So as much what's the word I'm looking for? As much grace or leniency we may want to project on this issue, there's a bigger issue at hand. And I think that just as and we talked about this a few months ago about giving grace to black men and all this other stuff. But when we talk about black women having multiple babies by multiple guys, it's a real sensitive issue at that point. I feel like I think that's unfair. I feel like as a black man, I can't call black women out on stuff like that. But I feel like as a black man, black women call us out on stuff all the time. And I'm not talking to y'all, in general, to you ladies on the pod, but I'm saying in general, that's how I feel. That's my experience.
Well, yeah, I don't have kids, so, but I do think like, but in what ways, right? Because, and I think it goes back to, because you said you didn't want to generalize, but you started to, right?
I did, yep.
Thinking about, because the way of like holding, like in that context, right? And I mean, just thinking about that show, not the larger issue, because I do agree with you, right? I genuinely do with what you're talking about in the larger community. But when we think about that particular show, that man, I do not think that was the right place for him to start chastising her without having the context. Because even when she said there's more to it and all the things, in my mind, what happens if there was harm done to her, right? Then led her to have this child, right? Like, I'm thinking of like all the context that he did not ask before having the conversation. My thing is, at any point, if you're going to have a conversation where you want to be heard, you have to understand the full scope of the thing. People are not a monolith. Out of all those women that popped the balloon, that have multiple children and all the things, I guarantee you all their stories are not the same. They're just not.
But the monolith would be, but then they kind of are, because they all had the same scenario.
So if
Lewis is not
I don't want
letting
to
up,
say
boy.
like this,
I'm not,
but
because I hate that shit, man.
And
I
that's
hate
fine,
that.
but once again, you still have to look at their whole story. So if you're telling me that one person was being physically harmed and then was made to have a child, or whatever the case may be, another person was told that they could not have a child, and then they had IUD, and then they all of a sudden got pregnant, all the things, they found out too far along, and then another person, they got married, or whatever the case may be, their partner actually passed away. These are other things. This is what I'm saying. If that part is not a monolith. Their stories is not. So the result, sure, but you cannot then chastise everybody the same way without knowing their stories. And they've lived it. It's not like they don't know. They literally live it.
So I'll say this where I feel like I do agree with the story, having the story aspect of it. Appreciate everybody tapping in with us right now, man. Hope y'all enjoying the show, man. Click that like button for the Monday Night Crew, man. We record every other Monday. Appreciate y'all. So what I would say, Asia, is I do believe that the stories matter, right? In a sense of accountability. Like, so if you had a child young, you waited, you had another child, then that person passed away, that 2 for 2 looks very different than if you out here spraying and praying. Absolute respect. But I will say, I do think there is a hard conversation to have around accountability of decisions that's clearly made by one party. You know what I'm saying? I do agree with you. And I think that, yeah, but I think the thing that separates this is the context, the show, and the environment in which he tried to go do that without having those things. But but in reality, I'll also say this. Jay made this point earlier. He has a right, being that he only has one child and one baby mama, to expect that from somebody else. You know what I mean? It's all the plus stuff that he said that made it bad.
And I think that we're taking it like what Lewis is saying. If you look at it from a broad spectrum, I 110% agree with what he's saying. This is something that's going on in our community, something that's not talked about a lot and is frowned upon, but also based off the concept of the show. If we get back to what it is, just generalize it to popping the balloon, right? Having that conversation after her balloon was already popped doesn't make sense to me, because she's already showing that she's not interested in you. They just asked why you popped the balloon. And said, hey, I popped because I didn't like what he wore, whatever the case may be. It's very generic. You know, it's very simple. I didn't like his shirt. I didn't like his attitude. Then you get to the point of like, okay, well, is this a match for you? I think we dug too deep into it. It's just a pop the balloon show.
But he's saying, you don't like my shirt, but you got 2 kids by 2 different men. But you popping my balloon over there, over my shirt. Shows you a bad decision maker.
Lewis is committed tonight, boy.
What?
But
Look,
man, I'm gonna be real.
He has every right to do that. It's just the fact that after I say that, let's be grown about it and move the fuck on. Like, you're not gonna be in my face going back and forth asking me questions when I already popped the balloon on you. Like, that's just it. There's no grounds for further questioning. Like, this is not an interrogation room. That's just how I feel about it.
But they well, in fairness, they ask people why they popped the balloon, and then they engage in conversation at that point. So, but
but
you got, I mean, it's so much
to interrogate me.
But before
after that,
Lewis, before they engage in conversation, she does say, the host says, what? Why did you pop your balloon? She says, I didn't like his haircut, whatever, right? Then the host goes back to this person and says, would this be somebody that you would date? They don't ask you to ask them questions. The only people that ask to ask questions is the people that's still holding their balloon. So you took it upon yourself.
Bro got offended that she popped, though. That's why he started.
That's what
I was about to say. It was the offensiveness for her popping that made him generate all those questions.
Right. I just wish he wouldn't have been. I just wish he wouldn't have been right so many times. That's just me.
Okay.
And that's where my frustration, my passions come from. And I'll say undertone. I feel like black men can't call out black women who have multiple baby fathers. I feel like that's an unspoken thing you can't critique. And they don't. And anytime they're confronted, I'm gonna say anytime. And most often when they're confronted, they get defensive about it. That's just been my experience. That's what I've seen.
All right. So, hey man,
I'm standing on that.
Boy, y'all got a different Louis B tonight. Boy, that joker was.
I'm standing on that shit. Y'all know I'm right. Y'all know I'm right. That's why you laughing. You know?
I'm because I just that whole scenario, like all that is beyond me. I think the way that he came across to those women, y'all already know how I feel about stuff like that. So like that was just a no-go.
Yeah.
For me. And I feel like that's not being talked about enough. I feel like rejection is a part of dating. And if you can't handle it, you shouldn't have been on the show. I wholeheartedly believe, like, even if he didn't want a woman with multiple baby daddies, multiple kids, or whatever, the aggression that came off of him came from the fact that she popped that balloon. And that is not okay for me. I don't think the level of aggression that he spoke to those women in, and the belittle, like the way he was trying to belittle them in his tone, that for me just was not appreciated.
For sure.
And can I just say
Honey.
one last thing? I promise it's the last thing.
Nah,
This is
go
just
ahead. I love it.
This
I
is,
love it.
and this is really on the topic of accountability with whomever, right? There has to be, and I mean has to be, a level of trust. On it doesn't matter what side, whether it's a woman talking to a man talking to a woman, right? For it to be received. The reason why I'm saying that is because there's so many people that have malicious intent, and they're not telling you things for your own good. A lot of people do like say things to manipulate you, to then just get you to be vulnerable and all the things, and then you close right back up. So even when it comes down to, because Lewis, to your point, right? Let's say like you have somebody that you consider like a sister to you, right? And they have made the decisions. You do know the story. If you come to them out of love and out of concern, right? Because you do know what, you know, she potentially wants in the future and all those things. Depending on how you come to her, she will receive it different than if you see a random shorty on the street, and then you try to have that same conversation with her. It is very different because the relationship and the trust is not there. I'm not going to trust you with any part of me. It's like, who are you to hold me accountable? There's nothing there. I don't know you enough to do that. But if I have a relationship with you and I feel safe with you, yes, I'm going to hear you because I know that you're not coming for me with malicious intent. There's too many, and this comes with Black men, Black women. We have so much distrust between us, period, that we cannot jump from dismissing that part of it to, yeah, we just have to hold each other accountable. We need to rebuild that trust, that level. That's why I do love this podcast so much, because I feel like that's what we do. How many times, Lewis, have you said that you've learned so much from us? And how many times have I said, man, I've learned so much about myself from y'all? Because that trust is there, that relationship is there.